Welcome to the Scott Townsend Show, brought to you by Dietzo Man Productions.
Hey, this is Scott Townsend. Welcome back to the Scott Townsend Show. And today I have with me, again, for the second time, which is awesome, is Dan Cockerell. Dan is a former vice president of the Magic Kingdom at Disney World. His bio, he started, and this is really cool, I think, Walt Disney World's college program. I did that too. You were there in '89. I was there in '88. So I started just 1 year ahead, and we were the first people to go to Vista Way.
Yep, that's right.
So that was really nice. Everything was nice and clean and new.
That's right.
But so Dan, yeah, he went to France and spent 5 years in France and opening up Disneyland Paris, used to be called Euro Disney, and then came back to Disney World, and you just climbed up the ladder, vice president of Epcot and Hollywood Studios, or back then it was Disney and GM Studios, and then ultimately at the Magic Kingdom. And now you do your own consulting work, and you have your podcast. You need to mention that, the Come Rain or Shine with Dan Cockerell. And
Come Rain or Shine.
Come Rain. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay, good. And so welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me back again. It's nice to be invited back a second time. It kind of reassures you did okay the first time around.
Yeah, that's right. So Dan, I noticed on LinkedIn the other day, and the first reason why I wanted to have you on the show was because I've become kind of a little bit obsessed with meetings. I've had some conversations with people about meetings. But before we get into that, because I wanted your opinion on meetings and stuff like that. But since then, I saw this, you have a new book out, Hardwiring Magic, written with your dad, Lee, and wife, Valerie, and Enrique Sierra, and Jorge Ishmael Torres. And it looks like, I guess I would call this, it's like a blueprint for how to design systems in your organization for desired results. Is that a good way of maybe saying?
That sounds like a great definition of what we were trying to do there.
Okay, so you want to talk a little bit about Hardwiring Magic? What were y'all? What was the purpose there?
Yeah, well, I think like most things in life, this sort of happened organically. We never thought about writing another book about this, but Jorge and Enrique had gotten in contact with my dad, Valerie, and I, and they are industrial engineers, and they're that's a group I came to really appreciate and respect at Disney, the industrial engineering group. It is, if you haven't worked with industrial engineers, and especially now with technology, I mean, they can simulate pretty much any operation when they're planning, when they're building a theme park. They can tell you how many widgets you need, how fast those widgets need to operate, how many cash registers you need, how wide the sidewalks need to be. I mean, they're really great at looking at operations and looking at guest and human behavior and coming up with great design. And so Jorge and Enrique had been big fans of Disney. They had attended Disney Institute and had learned all the principles of Disney. And they went and created a tool called Prisma 360, which basically was if a company wanted to put in place the rigor and discipline that Disney puts into operating its operation every day, they recreated that with this software program. And so they've worked with a few clients, an airline in South America. They worked with Mount Sinai Hospital in Miami. And they approached us and said, look, we have this great product and we want to get the word out on it. And so we all decided, we said, well, we could do a sales brochure, but we decided to put a little more work into it. And it's not, I as I tell people, I don't call it a full book. It's like a really nice sales brochure or a kind of a light book. But the idea was there are steps to take if you want to deliver customer service and create a culture. And so this was our shot at saying, okay, our book, we're not looking to put inspiring stories in here. We're not looking to do all that. We want to get down to the nuts and bolts of what it takes to put these systems in place. And so anyone can buy the book. We're selling it on Amazon. We self-published it. You can get the ebook for like $3.99 and the hard copy for $9.99. And the idea was for people to read through it. And if you want to put these steps in place yourself, you can do that. There's no secrets there. And then we have all our information in the book. And if organizations say, well, I'd love to see this software program to help me track all the things you're talking about, we're able to do that also. And it was like everything. When you have to teach something or write something, you learn a lot more about it. So like everything we do these days, it seems every time I do a keynote speech or a workshop or a podcast or an interview, I'm taking a lot of things that I've already learned and adding new things onto them, and it just keeps accumulating. And so this was a great exercise, and just saying, okay, how do you get down to actually look at this from a process standpoint? It's not about, like you said, we don't talk a lot about like leadership in here. We don't talk a lot about the enthusiasm. We just say, here are the steps that you need to take to make sure that your employees have the tools they need to create a culture that they're going to deliver world-class service.
So you, and we'll put a link to the book in the show notes below.
Great.
Just a couple of things I saw in here when I was reading through it. This magic happens when perception is better than expectation. So there's an expectation I'm sure that everybody has about, when you go to a place, but being able to exceed that expectation is when the real magic starts to happen, I guess.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I would say that we probably overplayed that concept for many years at Disney and finally got back into alignment. So what a lot of people will know is one of the stories you'd read online a lot of times is people would say, look, when you're at Walt Disney World and it says it's a 90-minute wait, don't trust that thing. Subtract 30% off whatever the wait time says, because Disney always inflates its wait times so that you wait for a shorter time and you're really happy. And as an operator, your tendency is to overinflate the wait time and beat it versus making it too short and have people wait longer. That's when you start to get the complaints, right? I overpromised and underdelivered as opposed to the opposite. And what we ended up realizing was a lot of our guests, when our wait time scores, when we asked them about wait times, they were really going down. People said there was a 90-minute wait, and we'd go back to our data and say, well, no, there wasn't a 90-minute wait. And we'd realize the actual wait was shorter. People were just actually not going into certain attractions because the wait time was so high. So we started to realize, okay, we need to be accurate. We can't play this game with the inflation. And so we basically said, okay, our responsibility now is to be within 10% of the wait time above and below, so people can trust it. And we started to go there and get away from the big overpromise and then the delivery, and get more into a place. And now with technology, you used to have, if you remember, every once in a while you'd get that little lanyard with a card, and they'd say, please hand this to the loader when you get to the attraction at the end of the line. And we used that for years, and it had an RFID chip in it. And even before that, they would give you a card. They'd write the time on it when you got in line. You'd give that card to the person at the end of the line. They'd write the time on it, and someone would put all that information to get later. Well, now that we have magic bands, we real time, we know what the wait is. And we know when people get in line, what wait time they saw, what the actual wait time is. And so we have a lot more data now because of that connectivity to be able to deliver those. But you have to understand what people's expectations are of what they're going to receive, because if you overplay or underplay that, things could go wrong, and it's simply communication.
In the chapter or step 2, hardwiring quality standards, you talked about going back to the right operators, trying to help your employees understand what's most important. And in this case, the example is a ride operator has a handicapped person, I guess, trying to load up on an attraction.
Yeah.
And so do they do they stop and say, hey, let me go get a manager and see what I need to do, which you don't want to happen. And you don't want them to, and so your point here was, it looks like safety is paramount, is number one. So
Right.
Regardless of whether, it may slow down the overall ride experience, it's better to be safe, stop it, load someone up safely, and then start the ride again.
Right. Yeah, that is as more and more that Valor and I do workshops with companies, we're seeing that is such a differentiator that a lot of companies haven't really had before. You have a vision statement and a mission statement. So the very lofty piece that someone puts on a poster and no one remembers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have, the quote unquote, the SOG, right? The standard operating guideline. And it's in a big binder and there's a lot to read. Mm-hmm. And, we have those at Disney. We have standard operating guidelines. There is a way to operate attractions, start them up, shut them down, hit the right buttons. There's a way to turn on the machine that cooks the hamburgers. But the issue is there's so many other situations that employees are going to have to deal with that aren't captured in the standard operating guideline. They're just random things that happen. And so instead of trying to build a tool that anticipates every situation, and first of all, people aren't going to remember that because it's going to be too big. And second of all, you can't anticipate all the situations. So what we've come up with is, instead of trying to do that, give your employees criteria of how to make decisions. At least give them a roadmap so they can put the criteria against the situation, and they're going to come to a logical conclusion about what they should do. Right. So and the quality standards are not the same in all companies, but at Disney, there's safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency. So when you walk out of Traditions, your first day of training at Disney, you may not know how to do your job. You may not even know where to get your costume. You may not know anything about the job, but there is no doubt in your mind that you have to be safe. We talk about texting while driving. We talk about using crosswalks. We talk about washing your hands. We talk about making eye contact. If you're a lifeguard, I mean, you watch your water. You do not get distracted. And because when you have, 50 million people coming, the law of odds says someone's going to get hurt or someone's not going to pay attention. And we do not want to be in that situation. Mm-hmm. So that's the trump. And usually the number one quality standard is a non-negotiable. It trumps everything. Then the next couple are usually, we call them differentiators. It's what differentiates our business from other businesses. And at Disney, courtesy and the show, putting people in these immersive environments was a differentiator. And if you can get really good at those in your decision making and realize, no matter what, be nice to people, no matter what the issue is, even if it's an unsafe situation, you're trying to help them, you can still be courteous. Always have that hospitality. And then efficiency is last. And most organizations, everyone is trying to be as efficient as possible. You're understaffed, you're going fast, no one wants to wait. And what Disney said is, no, that's going to be the fourth one. You have to do these first three before you're efficient. So if you're out of French fries in your restaurant, you can't run to the cooler and run back and throw them into the fryer, because that is unsafe. We'd rather have guests wait. We'd rather have them and not have the employees get injured before we're going to do that. So efficiency is at the bottom, and it's a great tool to give them, because someone who's worked there for 3 days and someone who's working there for 20 years are working off the same criteria and using the same information to make their decisions, and it creates a lot of consistency and a lot of continuity.
In the parking lot of the Magic Kingdom during that internship, that college program, and of all the cars that we parked, I had somebody didn't want to park where we told them to park, and they came at me with their car. It was very talk about an unsafe situation, but we got it handled. And you still smile and you handle it in the best way you can, and just move on, regardless of how someone treats you. You've got to that you're supposed to handle it with diplomacy and tact and a smile, whether you're being run over or just helping.
That's
park
one
cars.
of the rules of hospitality. If you're a professional, you never lose your cool, and they never let them see you sweat. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot to do that. Not everyone can work in hospitality, because it's not always easy. but you're there to always be, nice and cool and take care of the situation.
In the book, you also talk about, I really liked this when I was talking to someone about this the other day, the nonverbal communication. You have a little graph here, right here. And they were talking, you were talking about, and this, a lot of people don't realize this, I'm sure, which is one of the reasons why I like Zoom, is because, you and I can be talking on the phone or worse, texting or emailing, or we can be on Zoom or GoToMeeting or Teams or whatever, and you get to see the other person. And what you're saying here is nonverbal communication. It's like 55-60% of what's communicated happens through body language, which you don't get when you're on the phone or in an email.
Right.
And I think a lot of people forget that. They think if I'm speaking to you, then we're communicating. No, it's your tone. It's and this is in chapter or step number. What is this? This is step Hardwiring Behaviors. Yeah. I really thought that was interesting.
It's true. It's body language is a lot. People take in a lot visually, and to see how someone is standing, your stature. Are you crossing your arms? Do you have your hands on your hips? Do you have your hands behind your back? Do you have an open stance and look like you're available? We always talk about the fact when we do a photo, you got to smile with your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's smiling by looking at their eyes, not their mouth.
That's exactly right.
They really are smiling. You're going to see it in their eyes. And a lot of times I think people who work on their self-awareness start to think about those things. How am I projecting non-verbally? Every time I look down and text, and if I'm in charge of a group, people notice that. So if I do it at a key time when someone's speaking, there's a very strong message there that I don't really care about what they're talking about. And a lot of people say, no, I'm listening. I'm just doing this. And no, that's not acceptable. If you really want to be a great listener, you have to nod. You need to take out a pad of paper and write things down. When I used to meet with my general managers, I had a separate table away from my desk, and I had a pad of paper, because people told me at one point, because I had an iPad and I love being electronic, but finally people were like, what are you doing on your iPad? I'm like, I'm taking notes. So I had to get rid of even that assumption. And so I just started scanning my paper notes, because I didn't want them to think I was looking at some app or the news. And I'd take notes when I was talking to somebody, and it keeps you in the moment, and it just shows so much more respect. And that's something I'll tell you. I've told that story a few times. I had a couple opportunities to walk the park when Bob Iger was visiting at various times. And I don't know who coached him, but when he's with you, you think you're the only person in the world. I mean, he is at your hip. He doesn't slow down for the entourage. He's with you, and he'll walk. He asks questions. He's paying attention to everything you're saying. I've never seen him take out his phone. And that made such an impression on me. I'm like, well, look, if this guy, he's got a few things he's taking care of. If he doesn't get distracted, I should be able to do this too. So great role model.
Great role model. Yeah, he is. And the last thing here in this book that I just wanted to bring up real quick, on step 8, hardwiring recognition, which is so important. You talk about, first of all, leaders must understand the difference between satisfied employees and motivated employees. So if I don't have if I have a satisfied employee, I'm still not home yet. How do I get somebody from satisfied to motivated?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of like having a satisfied customer. Yeah, I'm satisfied, but if someone opens down the street that has something better, then I'm going to go get satisfied there. You want people to be motivated to come and enjoy your product or service. And a lot of times we think it is your pay, your health benefits, all those things that you get as part of your job. You could be satisfied. Yep, I make enough money. I'm being paid fairly. My medical insurance, I get a certain amount of days of vacation. But I'll tell you, at first, those are nice to haves, and you pay attention. But human nature is, after you've been doing that for a while, that becomes just an expectation. Yep, I get that much money every week. My medical plan is this, and I don't really value it as much as I did before. So motivated employees, they have leaders that are engaging with them, recognizing them, coaching them, developing them, making them better, training them every day. And that's human nature. It's something you have to do every day. You just can't give everyone a raise and just expect them to just, do a better job for the next year. And a lot of leaders say, well, I'm paying them a lot of money. Why aren't they smiling more? Well, because they're humans, and humans need more than just money and all this other stuff. They need to feel valued. And there's so many people out there that are making more money than they could ever imagine, and they feel disrespected. They don't feel like they don't have confidence because they're not treated correctly. And that's just one of the lessons of leadership you have to learn. It's if you could just throw money at this thing, it would be easy to do leadership. But that's what makes it so complicated. It can't be solved with things. It has to be the engagement of the leader, which can't be done efficiently. It's one person at a time, focusing in, paying attention to people, and making sure they trust you.
I saw your dad, Lee Cockerell, on LinkedIn said something that was, at first it makes you kind of snap your head when you read it, but when you think about it, it falls right in line with what you just said. I'm going to paraphrase because I can't get it exactly right. He said, your job is not to motivate people. Your job is to hire motivated people.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
And a lot of times we think we got to motivate our people, stir them up, get them, when in fact, what you need is people who are self-motivated, and you just find those people and get them to work on your team.
Yep.
Is that right?
That's right. Absolutely. We work with a lady I've mentioned a few times named Carol Quinn, and she wrote a book called Motivation-Based Interviewing. And she has such a great point of view. I wish I read this book 20 years ago because it makes so much sense. But once you get her going, boy, she gets up on her soapbox. She said, because she'll go on, you hire somebody, you think they're going to work out. They're there for 6 months and they're not doing the job you thought they would do. So then you start with employee engagement. Then you try to start to influence them and talk them into being happy there and doing a better job. And as a boss, you're doing all this work to try to get them to enjoy themselves. That's not our job. We're giving them a job. We're going to create a great environment, culture for them. They got to step up and do what they said they were going to do. And so that's the key. It is really, this idea of teaching attitude. It's really hard to do that. I mean, you see some people, okay, I'm going to go ahead. And I actually told this story the other day. I was doing, I think I was doing a podcast. I talked about the power of attitude. And I've been talking a lot about that lately. So when I start talking about things, I notice them more and more around me, examples of them. So we were down in the southwest of France visiting a friend of ours that we had worked with 25 years ago. And my wife's brother-in-law and sister were with us. We were staying at an Airbnb in Bordeaux. And one evening we were making some pasta. Alessandra came over and she was going to cook pasta. And we went to turn the gas stove on. And the pilot, the gas, the little thing you click for it to come on wasn't working, the spark. So we're all looking around. No one had a lighter. No one had fire. And so we looked for a few minutes. And finally, I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to go down the street to one of the little stores and buy a lighter and come back. And by the time I came back, the water's almost boiling. I'm like, how did you guys get the fire? And Eric's like, he's a can-do guy. He's like, well, I turned the oven on, and when it got hot enough, I put a piece of newspaper against the coil and caught that on fire and lit it. So that was just a difference. His attitude is, I'm going to make this happen with whatever I have in this room and figure out how to do that. I didn't even think of that. I'm just like, I'm going to go down the street and get a lighter, and the worst would have been, let's just go eat out because we can't make fire, right? That would have been the worst attitude. But the idea is people that have an attitude, they just figure stuff out. They roll with it. When things go wrong, they find another solution. They don't sit back and complain. They figure it out. They solve problems. They overcome barriers and problems. And that's what it is. And if you can hire people like that on your team, you're going to be successful all day long. It's just finding them is really hard because the minority of people out there.
Climb over, under, around, or through the wall, whatever it takes.
Thank you for joining the Scott Townsend Show. We'll be back right after this.
Pop's Daylight Donuts, man, they've got the best tasting donuts, sausage wraps, pastries in Northeast Oklahoma. And also, if you'll tell the staff there, hey, Scott Townsend said to give me a large spicy pig, they'll give you a free large spicy sausage wrap. but you have to tell them Scott Townsend sent you. So tell them, hey, Scott Townsend told me to tell you to give me a large spicy pig. So there's the offer. There's the call to action. So go to Pop's Daylight Donuts, say hi to Mark for me, and yeah, go to Pop's Daylight Donuts and get you some. The other sponsor is Castifly Outdoor Adventures.
Adventure. That's where it begins. We look to create and document our moments in time while embracing the majestic wonder and beauty of the great outdoors. Our quest is to explore the back roads of the Ozarks, camping, fishing, and just getting lost. Refresh your spirit and join us on our next adventure.
Paul and his crew invite you to subscribe to the Castifly Outdoor Adventures YouTube channel. The second thing I wanted to talk about, and we can just riff here just a little bit, but I have a big problem with meetings, and I'll tell you why. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he was invited to a meeting, and he had kind of got ambushed, so to speak. It was a last minute meeting. There was no agenda. They had invited him in to do something to add his expertise to it. So we did, and wound up kind of getting bushwhacked. These kind of, it's almost like they were trying to make this person the scapegoat. At least that's what he thought, and that's what he felt like, regardless if that really happened or not. But so we were talking about meetings, and I've always been a big proponent of a well-run meeting, because you see it so few and far between. I've never seen a company actually teach their employees how to have a meeting, and yet they expect you to have meetings. Yeah. And I'll take that back. April Woodson, who's the HR at ABB, she taught a session on holding meetings and how to do that, which I thought was really great, and I learned a lot from that. But I've found that so many people are required to go to and run meetings, and yet they don't know how to do it. So it turns out being a huge waste of time, money, effort, resources. It's just a tragedy.
Yeah.
Not to be too dramatic. So
no, I agree.
Talk to me about meetings. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, this is one, and it's funny, I haven't figured it out either, because at Disney, this was one of the big lowlights of my job, was meetings. Just the amount of meetings you were in, and you really didn't, being in it. And that's what I talk about now, is being a consultant now. We're not on Valor and I, we're not on the field anymore. We're up in the stands, and it's so much easier for us to see how things should run and happen versus being on the field. And I see it so clearly now about, meetings and the value of them, and how they can be either eliminated or streamlined. And so there's a few things I think about. One is, I think meetings are probably a symptom. Well, I know they're a symptom of lack of clarity and lack of strategy. Because if you have a plan for the year, everyone knows what their jobs are. Everyone knows what they need to get done. You can probably cut down on a bunch of meetings, because everyone knows what needs to happen, right? So it's we usually, when we don't know what to do next, or we don't have a plan, we call a meeting. And the meeting doesn't always solve the issue. We just feel better getting together with a bunch of people to talk to them. It just seems to make you feel better. I think another, when I look back at and when I was working at Disney, meetings were important to me because I wanted to pull people together. I thought that social time and that interactive time was important for people to see each other's faces and talk about things. But I look back on it and I realize, you know what? First of all, it didn't have to always be all of us at the same time. And if it was, it didn't have to be in a room. We could have gone, and we started to dabble in that later in my career. I'd say, look, today we don't have we don't have anything on the agenda that's really important. It can all be emailed. But what I'm going to ask you to do is, there's 16 of us on the leadership team. Everyone break into groups of 4. We're going to have 4 groups of 4. And I want you to spend the 2 hours we were going to have our staff meeting. And I want you to go into the park and go recognize or coach 10 cast members. And, you know, the groups would go out, finance, the general manager, food and beverage, the general manager of engineering, the industrial engineer, the HR manager, everyone on the team. And they would go out in little groups and spend time together and have that social time together and go see what was happening in the park and have those recognition moments and see what's going on. And all of a sudden we're like, wow, we're onto something here, because, you know, I'm getting that time for this group to come together. A lot of times as a leader, I wanted to put an exclamation point on something that was really important. And I thought if I had everyone in a room and said it, they would listen better than me sending an email. I don't know why I thought that, but, you know, it's like, that doesn't necessarily solve the problem. And I think, to your point, I think there is an opportunity for organizations to assign somebody, pick somebody, maybe it's an HR manager, and say, we want you to become an expert in how to have world-class meetings. We're going to send you to training, and you're going to come back and you're going to teach the whole organization what our methodology is going to be on meetings, when we have them, why we have them, how notes get taken, how they get sent out, how decisions are made. And moving forward, you're going to hold us accountable to that. And there's going to be a process to that. There'll have to be agendas for meetings. You're going to have the questions that need to be answered for meetings. And when that's all done, we can decide if we need the meeting or not. And I think there's an opportunity to put some rigor around that for sure. We just aren't disciplined. It's easy to call the meeting, but once it starts, it's not easy to run it in a way that's very efficient. And then I think the last thing, and this was trying to remember the GM of or the president of, I think, General Motors way back in the day. He had this great thing on meetings. He would go directly out of meetings with his assistant and type the notes up and send it out immediately. What was said, what was agreed upon, and what dates, what came out, the accountabilities of the meeting. And that's probably, for me, one of the most important things. Because in a meeting, lots of things are said. And so I had my assistant in the meeting. We would talk and we'd make a decision. I'd look at her and say, okay, Dave said he has that and he's going to do it in the next 2 weeks. She'd put it on her list. Dave would get the email with the assignment. 2 weeks later, she'd make sure that it had been completed. So we didn't have to think about it. So capturing those accountabilities and sending the notes out to people who weren't in the room, you know, to find out what was decided. So those are just a few things to think about. I think we talked about this idea of the data dump. You know, I need to tell you everything about everything. Well, it's nice, but not everyone has to know everything. And I know at Disney, we used to say, well, you never know what's connected and what's going to have an impact. And it's like, we're always scared of someone not knowing something. And so we wanted to tell everyone everything. And then
or that you're being caught off guard, or you get blindsided with something. Then why didn't you tell me?
Right. And then that's the other issue. Then you have emails coming at you left and right, because everyone wants to make sure everybody knows about everything. And so you need to put process in place. And maybe we can talk about that on a future podcast, emails and how we communicate, because that's an important part of this. If you don't have a good, solid communication plan in place, you're probably going to have more meetings also. With my team, everyone would send me a weekly update every Friday, 1 page, basically said, send me what you think I need to know about your business that's important to me as the vice president of this park. You can tell me 100 things. Probably only 5 things are things I need to know, and 95 things you need to know, but I don't need to know those. So figure out what those are. And over time, we will sort of adjust that as we go. If you give me too much, I'll tell you. If you don't give me enough, I'll tell you, and we'll just play by ear and figure that out. Tell me stuff you're working on. Tell me the things that you want to do that we're not working on today. I want to see what value you're adding. If you're just running your operation, that's not enough. I need you to look, what are you innovating? What new ideas do you have? What new products are you thinking about? What ways are you thinking about to become more efficient? And then lastly, tell me about the great things you're doing I don't know about. Because if you tell me those things at the end of the year, I'm going to tell you all these great things you did. You're going to be the source of that information, and you're going to get a bigger bonus, because I can't know everything that's going on with you.
Right. Got to toot your own horn a little bit.
Yeah. And every Friday I got a 1-page document from all 6 general managers. And I knew exactly what was going on. I picked and chose what I was going to send to my boss from those 6 reports. And the other thing was, all the general managers copied each other on what they sent me. I wasn't the only one that knew everything that was happening. I wanted them all to have visibility to each other's businesses so they could start having conversations. So those are just some simple things you can do to improve the communication. And then the last thing I'd say is, do you really need an hour? My scheduling app I use now is the default is 30 minutes, and usually 30 minutes is enough. If I put 60, we probably go 60 minutes with people need. I'm like, no, you get 30. If you need more, let me know. When I do podcasts, I extend it to 60 because I know we need a little more time. But when people get it, there's a recognition. Okay, I got 30 minutes, so I better get to the point and know what I'm talking about.
That's so funny. And what is that law where work fills up to the time that Parkinson's law or whatever, work always expands to the time that you give it. If you give yourself 30 minutes, somehow it gets done in 30 minutes. If you give it 20, somehow it gets done in 20, so.
Exactly.
You talked about this just a while ago about your iPad, but should people, when you go into a meeting, should you have your phone with you? Should you have your phone out? Or I almost want to I almost want to tell people, just don't even take your phone out of your pocket. Just put it on vibrate and I don't know.
Yeah. I never went there. If I was going back to work for a big company again, I would have a basket. And I'd say everyone put it in a basket. Or you know what? During the 1 hour we're in this meeting or however long, Kathleen, my assistant, tell all your assistants that they can text her if there's an emergency, something you need to know about. And the chances of them needing to know about something in a 30, 60, or 90-minute period they're in that room was extremely low. But if you have your phone, you're going to look. So just take it away. It's like at home. At night, I have a sweet tooth. And so I told Valerie, no cookies, don't buy them. Don't have them here because I'm not disciplined enough to not eat them. Now I'm disciplined enough to not drive to the store and buy them. So let's just let's take it away. Take that, the distraction away. And
right.
I'm a big fan of go ahead. If you have an armoire or you have something, just put them all there. And I can't imagine anyone who would need to have that can't be off the grid for that time period. And it really does change the dynamics of a lot of things. And unfortunately, I never did that. But if I was going back, I certainly would do that. It sends a really strong message how much you value everyone being in the moment and focusing on what everyone's saying and shortening that time and making it valuable, critical time.
What's your biggest pet peeve when it comes to meetings?
Probably that my pet peeve was something that I was probably guilty of, letting the conversation go on too long. That's another one. And once again, you have to get a little militant if you're going to run a great meeting. And we would have the timekeeper, and I did that with my assistant again. And if it said we had 20 minutes for this conversation, 15 minutes in, she'd say, you have 5 more minutes. And she was empowered to say that and shut it down when she needed to, because we were going to stay on time because we said that's how many minutes we needed for every topic. And it's so easy to start talking about something that's not on the agenda. People like to show up. They don't think about what they want to talk about, but once they get in the meeting, they have 5 things to say. It's like, no, if you can't think of it before the meeting, then you're going to put it on the next one. Get the agenda items in ahead of time. And we just worked with a client who didn't have an agenda. We said, get an agenda, have everyone send you their agenda items. And he said, well, what if they don't send them? I'd say, well, after 4 or 5 weeks, I'd ask whoever's reporting to you, you have nothing to talk about? I mean, really? So
you're telling me we really don't need to have a meeting?
Yeah, make people plan ahead. If you have a Thursday meeting, tell everyone all the agenda items have to be in by Monday. And you're really going to start getting people to have a longer planning horizon. And I think you can help your leaders a lot with that. If there's a presentation, telling people, I want to have the first draft 2 weeks ahead of time, they're like, wow, usually we're scrambling the night before. No, I want it 2 weeks ahead of time. Life's going to be better. It's going to be a better presentation. We're going to have time to get all the kinks out, and you're going to be a star when you present it. So I think that's something you can do with agenda items, is make your team give you it 3 or 4 days in advance of the meeting, and they'll start getting really thoughtful about what they want to bring forward.
What does showing up on time mean to you? What does that mean? If the meeting's at 10, do we go at 10? Are we 9:55? When should everybody be at the meeting? And is it okay if someone's late?
It's okay if someone's late, but not consistently. So yeah, it should start right on time. Now, as the leader, you have to make, if you're the on time person and you're going to be able to be there, if you're not going to be on time all the time, then you're going to have a hard time being the one that's preaching that you got to get this meeting started on time. So that's what kind of role model do you need to be? Some people are more loose. Yeah, 5 minutes after we'll get started till everyone gets there. And if you want to be that person, and it's funny, it's just like anything else. Once you set the expectation, everyone adjusts. Once you get there and they say, look, meetings start right on time around here. That's the way it is. People start adjusting around that. And I've had conversations with top leaders who are superstars, and they would show up a few minutes late because they were highly productive. They wanted to get that last call in before the meeting. I'd say, look, I appreciate you. You're doing a great job, but you can't be late because we want to promote you. And if we promote someone that's always late, people are going to look around and say, why isn't being on time important? So you need to figure that out. Get your act together, be here early, and start on time. But once again, you have to make that decision as a leader. And I think it's a great thing to do. The more clarity you have and the more you are consistent to your expectations, everything just runs better. I know people say, well, it's going to look like I'm really, too tough and I'm really too rigid. No, it's starting meetings on time is very reasonable. And you can set that expectation for everybody.
People will probably respect you more and be really excited about the meeting, knowing that it's not going to go. That's one of the tragedies is when you have a 30-minute meeting and it turns into an hour and a half and you're thinking of all the stuff you got to do and you're stuck in this time warp and that just sucks the life out of everybody. Yep.
Deliver the promise. 45-minute meeting, you be out in 45 minutes or less. And you just talk about what you have to talk about tomorrow, but don't let it run over. Get it done, and then you start role modeling, and so much time gets saved. Yeah, someone's going to come up. I hope it's us someday of how to really figure this out. I know that now they're using a lot of technology to help build agendas and do things, but at the end of the day, it comes down to just having some discipline. What are you trying to get done? Are you talking about the right topics? And are you recapping and having accountability come out of the meeting? If you can do those three things, you're probably going to be in a good place.
So I feel another book coming on, Dan. I feel another, I feel another hardwiring meetings or something.
There you go. That may be, that's a great idea.
That's people just need to know and be taught. If you think about it, how many times have you heard of people being taught about a meeting? So, or how to have a meeting? And I know our time is running up here. I'm on the clock and I want to get you out of here. You're in France, right? And so that's cool.
Yeah, we're here visiting my my wife's family. Her mom is 89 and has a garden and walks every day and has the energy of an 18-year-old. So I always I tell our kids, you guys got some great genes. Take advantage of that. And it's kind of cool. Her I haven't told her this yet or my wife, but I'm going to do a podcast with her and interview her. She was born in 1932. So she was 12 years old at the end of World War II here in occupied France. And so she's been through a lot and has seen a lot of things. And she's got so many stories about what it was like to be here and grow up here. And her father, her last name is Huit, Huit, which is 8 in French, because her father was an orphan. And the orphanages back in the day, when they got kids in, they'd name them after a day of the week or a month of the year. And so he showed up on the 8th of some month, or he showed up in August. We don't know, but they called him 8. And that's her maiden name. So anyway, it's fun to hear all the stories here and the history and be able to kind of.
Yeah, a lot of history there.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, really appreciate your time once again. It's always fun to visit with you, and you're always up to something. Your first book, How's the Culture in Your Kingdom? I'll put that in the show notes too. And then we've got Hardwiring Magic, and if Hardwiring Meetings ever comes out, we can talk about that one too. But
I'm on it.
Well, have fun, man. Enjoy France. Look forward to hearing that podcast. with
Great.
your mother-in-law. And any last words before we sign off?
Well, I think the time right now, the world is, everyone thought it was tough during the quarantine and the lockdown period. It's even, and I knew this was going to be the case, it's even harder now to navigate. There's fits and starts and what's happening with the economy, and there's not enough people working, and there's a lot going on. So I would just tell people to continue, as this was the number one piece of my book, and I love talking about this. Just keep taking care of yourself. Get the basics right. Get enough sleep, get some exercise, eat right, handle stress, take time for yourself. Because this is not the last and maybe not the worst crisis we're all going to go through. I've been through, as I get older, I'm like, yep, there's another one. And there'll be more in the future. And it's not about what crisis comes on. It's about how you react to it and how you handle it. Mm-hmm. And that's what defines us. So I just tell everyone, fight the good fight and get through every day and just appreciate what you have.
Good words. Thanks, Dan, for that. So if you want more information on Dan Cockerell, how can they get in touch with you? On LinkedIn or what?
LinkedIn, Dan@dancockerell.com is my email. CockerellConsulting.com is our website. All the information's there. Come Rain or Shine is my podcast. We've done I think we're coming up on 140 episodes. I know you're coming up. This may be the 100th, you told me.
Yeah, if everything works out, this could be the 100th episode. So
that's
real
great.
Excited.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And on my website, there's a tab called Free Resources. And I've been doing an article of the week for 23 years since I worked at Disney, and I continue to do that. So if anyone's interested, you can go to cockerellconsulting.com, click on Free Resources, and sign up for the article of the week. And I send out an article every Friday morning on a topic. And it's just food for thought, little developmental information, and maybe something that's going to help you maybe deal with something a little bit better.
The deal.
And it's free.
All right. And it's free. That's even better. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, watching. Like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast, wherever you hear this, see this, watch it. But Dan, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for being here. For Dan Cockerell, this is Scott Townsend. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
The Scott Townsend Show is a Dietzo Man production. For more episodes, visit the Scott Townsend Show YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.